Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. He looked at his friend face to face, right in the eye, and he said, "What if I hit you in the face with this water balloon?" And his friend, Captain Calm, arms crossed, stoically says, "Imagine your worst nightmare. Now times that by 100. Now times that by infinity. That's what I'm going to do if you hit me in the face with that water balloon." You'll have to stay tuned if you want to hear the rest of that one.
Master the StoryPower Method to captivate your audience, improve workplace culture, and 10x your fundraising.
Scan the QR code to book your first coaching call or visit StoryPowerCoach.com.
Subscribe now for access to our extensive media library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. Begin your personal growth plan at StoryPowerAcademy.com for leadership development and communication skills training.
I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. In the next scene, after Captain Calm said, picture your worst nightmare times 100, times 1,000, times infinity. That's what's going to happen if you hit me with that water balloon. And in the next scene, Captain Calm is chasing his friend, claws out, full honey badger mode. That was my introduction to a cartoon strip. And of course, in the final scene, you see the one character who threw the water balloon looking back over his shoulder as he's being pursued by this ravenous beast. And he says to the beast, "Why are you chasing me?" He said, "Because I told you what would happen if you hit me with that water balloon. Why did you throw the water balloon?" He said, "Well, you piqued my curiosity." That was my introduction to the cartoon strip Calvin and Hobbes. I'd never seen a Calvin and Hobbes. I'd heard people talk about them, but that was my first experience. And I have to be honest, a little bit of curiosity of my own kicked in there. I started watching and looking for Calvin and Hobbes cartoons. I thought it was very cleverly written, very well introduced. But I wonder how many of you would say, through the course of your life, you can honestly think back on the times that something calamitous happened that you suspected was going to happen if you continued down the pathway you were on. And yet, you didn't change it. As you know, if you've watched any series of these Leading Leaders podcasts, I love to watch little video clips. I like to watch the ones about cops doing their job. And I am amazed how many times a grown man is sitting in the back, or a grown woman sitting in the back of a cop car in handcuffs, crying their eyes out like they're 5. Like a toddler who's just lost their favorite toy, or been grounded, or been told, "No, you can't have ice cream." They suddenly didn't get what they want. And the real irony is that almost every one of them are looking at the circumstance they're in right now, in cuffs, in the back of the car. Deputy Slope calls it jail-itis. Something shifts in the brain when you realize all of the antics, all of the loud talking, all of the what's your name and badge number, all of the pushback, all of the resistance did not stop the inevitable. But the real twist of irony is that almost every one of them, while sitting there suffering with jail-itis, not all of them, some of them are still so arrogant they think they're going to get the cops in trouble for arresting them, or that they're going to get out, or that, "Hey, if you just call my dad, I'm going home." But the number of people who have that last minute revelation is amazing. And the last episode from Live a More Excellent Life from Leading Leaders, we talked about making a list of those actions, attitudes, behaviors, habits, the ones that serve you well and the ones that don't. In fact, I recommended you get a giant roll of butcher paper, because no amount of journal is going to hold all of the things going on in your life that you should be making a list about. But if you'll get a big old roll like this, you never get to the bottom of the page. You have plenty of space to write. And you can make your list. many of these people are now sitting in the back of the police car and they're thinking to themselves, if only I had called an Uber instead of gotten behind the wheel of my car. If only I had not picked up that last drink. If only I'd let my friend who offered to take me home. If only I had not been doing 105 and a 50 or a 30. Seen a couple of those too. If only I'd made one decision differently a little further back in history. And we're not even talking necessarily 10 or 20 years different. We're sometimes talking 20 minutes ago. If 20 minutes ago you had decided, yeah, I maybe had one too many drink. Maybe my friends and I shouldn't have been smoking that stuff we were smoking as close to me needing to drive home. And yet, consequences are staring you in the face. See, the what if process. I call it the WIP IT, the WIP IT flowchart. The what if process makes you stop for a minute and go, okay, I'm going to at least pretend to know, like a fortune teller, like a magic 8-ball. What will happen if I make this decision? And I'm going to compare that decision, pros and cons, with the 10 other decisions that I have to make at the same time. And maybe they're correlative. Maybe if I decide that I'm not going to drive, I also have to decide what's going to happen to my car. Am I allowed to leave it in the parking lot here? Do I have a friend who will drive it home? Is it going to get towed? But if I drive it, is it going to get towed? If I drive it and I lose control and I hurt someone, we're not now talking about just a bad day. We're talking about a cascade of decisions that could change literally the remainder of your life. There was a young man not too long ago, right here in the state of Texas, 16 years old, driving at excessive speeds, hit a car parked on the side of the road where dad was trying to change his tire. I believe he killed 3 people in that incident. He's 16. His parents begged and pleaded that his future wouldn't be destroyed. And you're thinking, a dad, his kids, their life is destroyed, completely over. The survivors in that family may never get past this moment. But it's okay that the teenager perhaps get a pass? I don't think so. See, those decisions, though, those are lifelong. That's not a, okay, I made a bad choice. I shouldn't have set the toaster on 6. It's smoking, and the bread that's in there is now inedible. Okay, your house is going to smell for a little bit. You got some cleanup to do. Probably going to have to start another slice of bread. Hopefully it wasn't the last 2 slices of bread in the history of the world. But the chances that you can recover from making the decision of what setting you had the toaster on versus driving while intoxicated, driving too fast, driving while you're under the influence of something else, playing with a weapon that you're not trained to utilize. These are the kinds of decisions that you only get to make once, and the consequences are significant. Now, dare I say, in that list of consequences, perhaps the way that you travel to work, the person you choose as a spouse, the education path. I remember a girl that I dated long before I met my wife. She had a bachelor's degree in home economics, a bachelor's degree in interior design, a bachelor's degree in Russian. And when I met her, she was working as a youth pastor and working at a bank. I'm like, you've got all these degrees. You could be an officer in the military. There's so many other things that you can do. And she said, yeah, but I've tried each of those jobs. I didn't really like them. And I'm thinking, okay, $250,000 worth of student loan debt. Now's a good time to decide you invested a whole lot of time and money in something you didn't appreciate, enjoy, or really want to do with your life. No judgment. I'm just thinking maybe before all the investment of time and finances, you could have decided that. When I wrote the book, Live a More Excellent Life, in fact, when I wrote the book, I have to show you this because it's comical, it's sad. The very first copy of this book looked like this. You'll notice on there some very unique tools. In fact, in the opening, you'll see that it says you cannot mow a yard with a spoon, paint a Picasso with a banana, or drive nails with a champagne glass. I thought that was very, very clever. And then I changed it to this because, it appeals to women and to men because there's a guy on the back and a girl on the front. And then eventually I changed it to this when I had a better idea who the audience was that would need the book, those that are starting out and those that are starting over. But I can tell you, when I wrote the book, we lived in a neighborhood that we had just moved to 5 or 6 years before. And when we moved into that neighborhood, we were told by the people who were building the neighborhood, there were going to be more than maybe 200 houses here. And so literally I would back my truck into the driveway. I would drive forward out of the driveway, hang a left, go to the had just moved to 5 or 6 years before. And when we moved into that neighborhood, we were told by the people who were building the neighborhood, there were going to be more than maybe 200 houses here. And so literally I would, no stalls, no delays, easy peasy. After about 4 years of living there, now my street has a 4-way stop sign at the end. And then I had to turn and go to the corner and it had another series of stop signs. And then I had to turn and go to the top of the hill and now it had a full-blown rotating traffic light with all of the turn lanes, et cetera, et cetera. And they expanded the high school across the street from there. And they expanded the highway. And about 5 years in, they built another 200-something houses. And then they built an elementary school. So now if I do what I've always done for the last 4 or 5 years, I get in my truck, I drive out of the driveway, I turn left, I go to the stop sign, there's a crosswalk with little kiddos running back and forth. And then when I make that left turn, in order to get to the next light, crosswalk, little kiddos running back and forth. And then I make that turn, now I got school bus line, parents drop-off line, crosswalk, a highway turn signal, and more cars than the highway can handle. What I figured out, though, is that if I pull out of the same driveway onto the same street and I turn right, I don't go toward the school. I can turn right, though, and I can go out through the Texas Motor Speedway and onto the highway and skip all the school traffic in our neighborhood. All of it. All of it. All of it. I'm back to a 15-minute travel instead of 45 minutes. Same distance. The difference in, am I going to be there in 45 minutes or am I going to be there in 19 minutes is whether I go left or right out of my driveway. That's it. That's the only thing that has to change. Now, granted, it's traffic. In DFW, it can be a mess and a heartbeat. But generally speaking, if I pull out of my driveway and I go right and I take the shortcut through the other side of the neighborhood, no school traffic, no crossing, no crosswalks, no children's in the way. Most of them are on bicycles on the sidewalk. Whole lot easier. Why wouldn't I do that? It's a really simple little word. You have the same problem. I mean, only if you're human. If you're not human, why are you even watching this? But if you're human, you have this thing called habits. That it's the subconscious part of the brain that just makes us do things automatically. We don't really think them through. We don't throw the brakes on and go, hold up. My worst nightmare times 100 times 1,000 times infinity. Maybe that's a good idea. No, we don't do that. We run out the door, coffee cup in the holder, key on, air on or heat on, windows up, everybody's ready to roll, and bam, out of the driveway. And in habit, you make a left. Now, for what it's worth, I drive a pretty big SUV. My street is not big enough to be making a U-turn when there's already school traffic and kids everywhere. It's not like I can pull up in somebody else's driveway and back out into the street with all the cars going by and make a U-turn. If I've made the left, I just made a 20-minute commitment difference. If I turn left out of my driveway, I'm now in school traffic. If I turn right, no school traffic. You would think it would be easy to remember, to recall, to decide every time you get in the car, go right. And sometimes you lull yourself into that false sense of security. I'm early. I'll be out of here. School bus. It's not the one taking the kids to the school. It's the one picking the kids up at every corner. Red stop sign comes out. I made it 8 feet. If I could only get around him. I can't get around him. There's 5 cars in front of me, and they're doing the same thing. Stop sign. All I had to do was go right. If I just went right, I wouldn't be behind this school bus. You could feel the frustration level going up the entire way. And the thing that I'm asking myself, by the time I get to work and I'm stressed out and my coffee is gone and I hate traffic and I'm not even sure I like little kids anymore. When should I have decided to go one direction versus the other direction? And so what I'm challenging you to do, as you look at the habits, the behaviors, the choices, the actions in your life, as you begin to make that list on the giant roll of butcher paper, and you're writing down the things that are unproductive, counterproductive, and perhaps neutral, are these things making my life go backward, making it harder, making it more struggle? Or are these things making my life go forward? Or does it really even matter? If it doesn't really matter if I wear blue shoes or round shoes, pick the ones that suit you. But if it matters whether you pull out of the driveway and go left or right, you probably should put a little more thought into that. Am I running a little late? Do I have the extra time? If I leave too early, do I get caught behind the psst? Or do I get to just zoom all the way to work? Maybe I got to get up 20 minutes earlier than that, get my shower done, get in the car and drive. And it's going to be a 15-minute trip to work, but now I got an extra 15 minutes to spare when I get there because I left earlier, I traveled less, and now I'm here earlier. Is that okay? Is that a bad thing? Is there a good way to utilize that time? Or are you just wasting time by getting up that early and driving that early, and now you're there and you're tired? Don't fall asleep in the car, by the way. You might sleep right past your alarm and find that even though I've been here for 2 hours, I'm still late for work. I know people that did that. I'm not one of them. I love to early rise. I love to get my morning started early. I love to get into the groove of things early. I get a whole lot more done. In fact, I was just chatting with somebody the other day. Some of my most productive time is 4 to 5 o'clock in the morning. I may be tired earlier in the day by like 9 or 10 o'clock as opposed to 11 or 12 o'clock when I normally go to bed. But if I can get up at 4 and get that quiet time when the kids are asleep, the grandkids are asleep, whoever's in the house is asleep, even the dogs are still asleep at 4 a.m. And from 4 to 6, I can get a lot of work, like 3 hours of work done in that 2-hour window. 1 cup of coffee and plugging away in the dark. But see, that's a decision you have to make the night before, because if you stay up till 1 in the morning and then try to get up at 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning, you're not going to be productive because your brain's not going to be clear. I'm sorry, that's just a fact. But see, these little decisions that we make, the little habits that we have, the relationships we tolerate, the conversations that we have, the environments that we place ourselves in, all of those contribute to the long term. Are you in the right place with the right people now? Are you hanging out with the right people and hearing the right things? Think back to the quote from a few episodes ago when I said, I heard someone once say, the wealthy have big libraries and the poor have big TVs. Someone corrected me and said, and when you're wealthy enough, you get to have both. A big library, which helps you gain your wealth, and a big TV to enjoy it with. Because everybody needs a break from time to time. Okay, I can accept that. But if you prioritize your big TV over your big library, your big entertainment over your big education, your big leisure time over your productive time, you will have leisure time until you're broke. And the productive time is not going to hunt you down. These are choices you're going to make. So along with your chart of the pros and the cons, the goods and the bads, these things are counterproductive, these things are productive, and these things are neutral list, I want you to start a new list. In fact, I just want you to start a flow chart. I want you to imagine that you are where I was in the driveway. And imagine that if you turn left, these are the sequence of events you can expect to happen. And if you turn right, these are the sequence of events. And if you're having a hard time with that, I just want you to mentally map out from your own driveway. Maybe you drive into your driveway nose first. I watched my mother run over our pet cat when our house caught fire when I was about 10. I almost always, if I go to the mall, I back into a parking space if it's allowed. If I go to the grocery store, I back into the parking space. If I go to the gas pump, I pull forward all the way through so that there's nobody trapping the front of my car. I don't want to have to back up if I don't have to. And when you drive a large SUV like I do, and you got kids and neighbors that are smaller than your back window, the odds of running over one of them, even with a backup camera, even with sensors, is way too high. That's a mistake. That's an error. I was rushed and didn't see them. I can't tell you how many times I've walked around the front of my vehicle and seen chalk marks on the ground. Little kid hiding in the shade right under my front bumper, and they're drawing all over the sidewalk in chalk. I don't care if they're drawing on the sidewalk with chalk, but for heaven's sake, don't hide under the front of my truck. Even when it's going forward, I can't see you. See, that's another one of those WIP IT flowchart things. What if I get in my car and I go to back out and there's a bicycle behind me? Do I have a backup camera? Do I have sensors? Do I have other ways of knowing? Do I walk around the car? These are decisions you have to make before the moment happens. Because when you're standing in the hospital room looking at that kid and thinking, if only, you're going to wish you'd taken the time to do a what if process ahead of time. What could I do to prevent? What can I do to avoid? When your bank account is empty and you realize, I left my debit card laying at the bar, laying on the restaurant, laying at a friend's house. I made a mistake. I should have prevented this. I am where I am because of some decision that I make. When you realize that, that's when you realize I could have done something differently and prevented or changed this outcome. And the fact that I didn't is on nobody but me. I'm challenging you to take the time to look through all the major decisions that you make, even the ones that seem mundane. Do you find yourself regularly frustrated with traffic? Draw the map. Do you find yourself dealing with the same relational issues with the same group of people over and over again? They get unhappy, you blow off your steam, they fly off the handle, everybody loses their cool, and somebody's job or somebody's relationship or perhaps even somebody's health is now in danger. See, these are decisions you have to make before the moment happens. You've got to think through these things long before the crisis arises. If you're not prepared when the moment comes, there's no opportunity to avoid it. Sometimes the greatest thing you can say is nothing. The word that's needed the most doesn't have to be spoken. Sometimes the look alone, the fact that you didn't react, is more important. It's more profound. But if you don't learn to walk through the process of asking, if I do this little micro action, follow consistently this little micro habit, if I don't do that, what happens? What changes? If I don't eat the whole bag of donuts, if I don't eat the whole bowl of ice cream, if I don't walk around the block 3 times, if I don't get regular exercise, if I don't have the conversation that's hard, what if? The what if process, this flow chart, is designed to challenge you to write out these things, to look at them, because you can't become aware of the things that you ignore. But when you become aware of them, then you can measure them and then you can manage them. The first thing you've got to do is become aware of them. The what if process challenges you. Again, if you don't have this book, you can go get it at Amazon for less than $15. If you want to take the full course, you can go to StoryPower Academy. It's on there. There's a chance for you to change your life, to genuinely live a more excellent life. If you're starting out or you're starting over, this book, this course, this mentorship program, it's designed for you. It's designed for you to be able to find those tools and techniques that will radically change your future. It's all about you. Nobody can do it for you. Nobody can do it to you. Nobody can stop you from drunk driving but you. And when the cops do, your future is already predetermined to not be so good. The choice didn't happen when the cop pulled you over. You got to start right there and back up 10, 15 steps and ask, what did I do that I could have done differently to prevent or avoid this outcome? Maybe it's not DUI. Maybe it's diabetes. Maybe you've seen someone lose a limb from the complications. What are you doing to make sure that's not you? What are you doing to prevent your relationship from going south? You didn't like your parents' divorce. You didn't like your grandparents' divorce. You didn't like your aunt's divorce. You didn't like your sister's divorce. What are you doing to make sure that you don't have one? What if you continue doing what you're doing? Will you get the outcome you want? If not, you're the one responsible for changing it. Take the time to do that. Start building a what if process flowchart. If I do this, or this, or this, what happens? I can't answer that for you. But if you don't take the time, you won't answer it either. I'm Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV.
Think storytelling's just for bedtime? Nah, it's the secret sauce for business magic. Stuck in a rut with bland pitches and yawning clients? Enter Boost Your Business with StoryPower. 6 weeks of epic storytelling training. It's like leveling up in a video game but for your career. Master the art of narrative and watch connections blossom like a viral TikTok. Simple, impactful, and game-changing. Ready to transform your biz vibes? Dive in now and make storytelling your superpower.
Hey, I'm Loren Norris here with StoryPower Academy, and I want you to know we've got a new course dropping just next week. That course is called The Attitude Hack. If you've been a part of the StoryPower community, you know that we work on crafting intentional stories. We mine those stories, we craft those stories, we connect those stories to an audience, and we lead a narrative with them. The next level is to take those stories and deploy them in the workplace. And so there's really 3 phases of that. The first one is we've got to understand the very contagious nature of an attitude. The second is, how does that attitude, those stories that we've been telling, how does that impact your brand and your culture? And then finally, we're going to discuss in this next course, 6 weeks course, we're going to discuss how do you as a leader engineer attitudes, because that's your job as a leader. If you've learned how to mind, craft, and deliver stories, now you're going to learn how to see them work in the workplace. I challenge you to be a part of the Attitude Hack beginning on June 9th. This 6 weeks guided program is specifically designed for those people who say, I know I need to tell stories. I need to tell better stories because the ones I have are boring or they're not getting across. Or as John Maxwell says, everyone communicates and, well, few connect. Now, as a participant in this course, what I would really love to know from you, put it in the discussion on the course if you're already registered online. Send me a chat, send me a DM, send me a text, send me an email. I'd really love to know what you hope to get out of this course. Now, I can tell you what we're going to discuss, and I can tell you what I plan to teach and train you on, and I can tell you even what we plan to discuss each week on the calls for the next 6 weeks. I'm going to go over all of that for you in just a moment. I can also tell you that my clients who get the greatest success are the ones who apply the StoryPower process to their business development to increase their impact, their influence, and their income. Now, the StoryPower process includes story mining, story selection, story qualification, story crafting, connecting with your audience, and leading the narrative. And if you leave any one of those parts out, you're going to find that, well, you're just not as effective as you want to be. You're not going to grow your business to the same level. You're not going to lead with impact and influence like you hope to. I can also tell you that the people who apply these things, well, they're not failing in their business. The reason a lot of people fail in their business is they continue to fail to connect the solution they offer with the problem that their clients have. The pain and the solution never come together. And a lot of that failure is because they're not clearly articulating how their solution solves someone else's problem. It comes down to a question something like this: who do you help and how? Yes, that's one of the first things we're going to discuss over the next 6 weeks of Boost Your Business with StoryPower.
Master the StoryPower Method to captivate your audience, improve workplace culture, and 10x your fundraising.
Scan the QR code to book your first coaching call or visit StoryPowerCoach.com.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library of